Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
In the next 20-something minutes, we are going to give you the secret to living a wonderful life. And it's all, you have it already. You just don't realize it. Where is it? It's up in here. We're going to talk about the subconscious mind and what's going on. How is it supporting us? Or how is it holding us back? And what do we do about it? And you definitely want to hear this because it's all of us. And when you hear what we're going to talk about, you're going to say, I had no idea that's what's going on in all of us. She's somebody that helps transform people's lives through many different modalities. And one of those is tapping into the subconscious and figuring out what goes on there. She's a retired nurse, an author, transformational empowerment coach, and she's Valerie Peck, and she's back with us. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me.
This whole subconscious thing, once I studied it, learned more about it, all the pieces came together. Oh, that's why we do this based on this. And this is something that was put in our subconscious many years ago, just living life as a kid, essentially. What we're talking about here, is it mostly stuff that came from our childhood?
Well, it's actually a little bit bigger than that. So people know the subconscious mind by that term, subconscious, but I use the term unconscious because sub refers to less than, and our unconscious mind's capacity, our computing capacity, is between 90 and 95% of our mind's power. And there's nothing sub about 95%. Our conscious mind is the rest of that, obviously a lot less.
Wow.
Think of your unconscious mind like a massive receptor plate. It's just like a big, huge, sticky wall. Everything, every bit of data that you receive, every second of your life goes to your unconscious mind and gets cataloged, stored, filtered. It's all there. Everything that you have ever experienced, every memory, every event, it is all there. The unconscious mind runs about 17 different functions, including just running our whole body day and night, 24/7. It stores all of our memories. It catalogs them. It brings them up when we need to access them, and it represses them to help protect us. And the unconscious mind is the part of the mind that helps us install new behaviors. And that's where we can really access power, because getting unstuck and getting new behaviors takes practice.
It's almost hard to fathom those numbers. And I've heard them before, the 90% right in that territory of what's going on every single day, your subconscious, that's it. Would it be almost safe to say that the conscious part is almost like autopilot? Like we're aware of what's going on. Like, for example, in our conversation, I'm aware you're there. We're talking together. There's a conscious component there, but even in our conversation, is the subconscious working in the background, even during this conversation?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. Here's just a couple of numbers. They're crazy numbers, but it helps illustrate the relationship between the unconscious mind and the conscious mind. So conservatively, if you were receiving 10 million bits of data a second, and that's a really conservative number, and the conscious mind can only process a packet of about 50 bits a second.
50.
50. If you divide 50 into 10 million, you have a lot of choices about perspective and thought and where you're headed every single second.
Wow. I believe that most of us have no idea what's going on. And that sticky wall that you talk about, the subconscious wall that when you experience things, it goes up on the wall. So, you know what it is? It's post-it notes. It's up on your subconscious. You know, that happened in I got bullied in seventh grade on the playground. That's on the wall, the
It's on
subconscious
the
wall.
wall.
This is something my dad said to me when I was 8. I forgot it. But my subconscious didn't because it's on the wall. It's all there. Wow. Uh, it seems reasonable that we want to get rid of some of that stuff from our subconscious that is limiting us, i.e., the limiting belief. Can you give some examples of how people are stuck today based on stuff that's up on their sticky wall?
From the beginning, we have been developing and have been told and have reinforced our own story to all of those limiting beliefs and thoughts. I'm not good enough. I'm not safe. I'm not lovable.
Mm,
I'm all the I'm nots. All the I don'ts. Um, all the I can'ts. So,
uh,
you can harness the power of your unconscious mind to work for you. You can ask it to bring up good processes. You can ask it to access memories.
hmm.
You have to be really, you got to have some direction and some guidance in learning how to use that process. But you can access the unconscious mind, and you can also ask it to release negative emotions, negative feelings. You can ask it to release limiting beliefs and decisions. And that's where the process of forgiveness, we talked earlier about that. The alchemy of forgiveness is part of that. You ask the unconscious mind to release, and you give yourself permission to release and to forgive anything that's on the line of your memory, your timeline, that you need to let go of.
We can't do it alone, though.
No, you need a guide.
Yeah, it's not as simple as, again, hypothetically, bullied on the playground, which I was. I was bullied. I was the fat kid. Never got picked for anything. It was, yeah. Did it affect me later in life? Hell yeah. But I didn't know that until I made what I call connecting the dots. And that was just, some things. Um, had I figured this out years ago, probably would have progressed in many different areas. And that's just one example. We all have them. That's the thing. We all have those things there. But it's not as easy as saying, okay, subconscious, that situation that happened when, I was a kid, I want that erased. I want that erased right now. Can we get rid of that? We can't do that. That's something that somebody like you needs to take care of through a different type of modality. What are some of those modalities? Is it NLP, that being one of them?
There's a process in the evolved NLP that I was trained in called quantum time release. And you actually use your timeline. We've all got a timeline in our head, past, present, future. And you can access memories and all the stuff stored in the unconscious line on your timeline. And you can release it. The process starts with releasing the big 5 negative emotions:
Okay, can I
anger.
jump in? I don't mean to cut you off. I've done this before. I've done this before we met. And I was waiting for you to say it. I'm like, I wonder if she's talking about what I experienced. But it was the 5 negative emotions. And you explain, but all I'm going to say is the practitioner, I think there's many different ways to do it, had no idea. I didn't even have to divulge any of them. It's more about what you're thinking during the timeline regression. Is that how you do it as well, or can do it?
Um, we go back to the point of origin for whatever emotion that we're working on.
Sure.
And there's a specific order that you got to go in. And we access the field of pure potentiality, the place that exists where everything is possible, because everything is possible. You just have to access that. And we start there and we work our way back and we release. And then we go out, we future pace. We go out to the future and we replace limiting thoughts, old negative emotions with new things, new examples. Because our existence abhors a vacuum. So if you remove something, you've got to replace it. And who wouldn't want to replace positive or negative with a positive? So
Absolutely.
My process not only removes negative baggage, to be simple, but it installs lots of positive reinforcements, lots of positive ways to view things in the future.
Can we look at some examples? And you pick any direction you want to go in. If we want to center on the negative emotions and do you call it a timeline regression?
No, we just work on the timeline.
Okay.
One of the first things we do in the process is we just discover the timeline. We ask the person to find the past. We ask the person to find the present. We ask the person to find the future.
Yep.
And once you have your timeline in your mind, you can wander back and forth, and you can use that, obviously, to facilitate releasing of, our emotions are now measurable. They have energy measurements attached to them. Shame registers at about 20 hertz. Joy and peace and enlightenment are like 540, 600, 700 hertz. And people might say, well, that sounds like woo-woo. We've all felt the joy, the high of being loved and being joyful and being in bliss. And we all know the heavy feeling of shame and fear and guilt. And we can see it on other people. I mean, we call them heavy feelings. So the big 5 negative emotions that we work with in my process are anger, fear, sadness, guilt, and shame. And we release the negative baggage associated with those emotions. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to feel those emotions in the future. No, that's not. Those emotions will just keep coming along. But you're going to get a different perspective when those emotions come along.
Is it a process where you think about the first time in your memory that you had, pick any emotion, sadness, the first time you experienced sadness, and you're looking at your timeline in your mind, and you identified, oh yeah, I remember, it goes back to, I can remember like I was 5 years old. I was sad. Something happened, dog died, whatever it might be. And then from that point forward, is it almost as if like you pull the rug from underneath the emotion and all the stuff along the timeline, the feelings of sadness go away? You still feel them, but in a different way. Am I explaining that right?
Exactly. And you just, as you start from the past and work your way toward present, you release the negative charge of that emotion.
And to your point, it's not that you're never going to feel sadness anymore. We're human, of course you are, but it's in a different way. And I'm thinking that because it was connected to your subconscious in the beginning, let's say you were 5 years old, that every time you felt sadness along the way, it was the same kind of sadness because that's what the subconscious knows. The sticky wall had this sadness thing up here. And every time you feel sadness, decades later, you always refer back to it. You don't know you're doing it, but you are. Am I making sense?
Absolutely.
Wow. When you do this timeline exercise, is this NLP?
This is evolved NLP because
Okay.
it's done in a safe and ecological manner. And when I say that, every tool, every concept can be used in a positive or a negative way. In evolved NLP, and my conscious mission is just to do the right thing for the people that I'm working with. And part of the first process is that I ask a question of the unconscious mind. Is it okay for you to release? Is it okay for you to work this process? And I've had clients who are not ready. The unconscious mind is not ready to go there and have actually bolted from a session. The response was so profound. They
Wow.
couldn't go there. The unconscious mind would not give permission, and we did not do the process. So I can't do anything untoward to people in their unconscious mind because the unconscious mind runs everything.
I can't imagine that happening. And I want to know how that would, I don't want to take a lot of time on that, but you ask, is it safe, whatever the wording is, for us to remove, that feeling of sadness from back in the day, however you word it. How did the person respond and or what did they feel from their subconscious? I can't even imagine that. But
With
please
regard to
explain.
the person that bolted from the session,
Yeah, how did that go?
she said, "I'll be right back." And I waited for 10 minutes. And I established contact, and I said, we were in a scheduled session. And her response was this: "I'm cleaning house."
Meaning?
She could not go there. Her unconscious mind shut the door tight.
Why?
She wasn't ready. And the unconscious mind knows when you're ready to do work. And it will bring up and it will allow you to work processes when you are ready to work the process.
Interesting. When you perform this timeline exercise to eradicate the feelings of negative emotions, do you need to know the scenarios? When I did it, the practitioner didn't need to know. Just think in your mind the first time you felt guilt, you felt shame. They're done in different segments, but those are the words. Do you need to know?
I have them state out loud because there's power in the spoken word.
Sure.
And when you say it out loud, it becomes real at all levels. Instead of just lurking in the background, it's up front. My work is confidential. The bond of trust and confidentiality is inherent to me. I've lived in that world for 45 years as a nurse. I keep people's knowledge safe and secure. And so, when we get to this process, we just don't jump right into this on the first session. We've established rapport. We've talked about the processes of the unconscious mind and what it does. You know, we've done a lot of groundwork, and we have established a rapport so that there is safety in their environment. They know me, they trust me,
Sure.
or they wouldn't go forward. So,
And I agree with you in the spoken word, you explaining when it was. Yes, the first time I felt sadness was on the playground, when I got bullied. Because if we're trying to think of it, our minds are like ping pong balls, or a lot of us have a squirrel mind where it's like, no, maybe this, maybe it's this, maybe it's that, maybe it's this. You're thinking. If you say it out loud, it is more of a reality. And you might say, that was the time. Oh, wait a minute. No, that wasn't the time. There was a time before that where I'm sad because I got a really bad sunburn when I was 4. It wasn't the playground. That was the first time. So I can see how impactful that would be. And of course, like you said, it's all confidential. Um, how many sessions would you need for this to eradicate all those negative emotions?
you can do quantum time release in a 2 to 3 hour session with a couple of limiting beliefs. And you can come back within a week, inside of a week, and add more limiting beliefs before you have to repeat the time release.
Is there anything that's negative with any of this? What's the downside? Is there a downside?
Well, I've experienced it. All the peers that I've worked with, all my clients, it's safe.
Yeah.
Because we ask the unconscious mind if it's okay. And the unconscious mind knows. Just like the client that bolted, the unconscious mind didn't feel safe in that environment. We didn't proceed. We didn't do anything untoward. You know, if she was tied down in 4-point restraints and heavily medicated on psychotropic medications, I might have gotten the unconscious mind to play, but that's the only way you can make people. I mean, it takes CIA level torture stuff to really screw up your mind. Your mind has control. You may not understand that, you may not believe it, but it's in control.
Yeah. When we talk about this quantum healing and even hypnotherapy, all of that, you can't do anything that you wouldn't normally do. It's, nobody's giving up credit card numbers or anything like that. It's, in a good way, your subconscious is the gatekeeper. In a bad way, your subconscious is the gatekeeper because it's blocking you from doing things that you want to be doing. Who wants to be miserable? Who wants to be afraid to get on a plane? Who wants to have a fear of this? All of that. It's your subconscious protecting us as best it knows how.
That's the prime directive of the unconscious mind. Keep us safe.
Yeah.
Keep us safe. And learning how to, when the unconscious mind is ready, use that. I mean, when people desire to get unstuck, that thought didn't come from your conscious mind. That's your unconscious telling you, I'm ready to deal with this. With those thoughts that, oh, it just came to me. That was the unconscious mind saying, hey, how about this?
Interesting. So, and we're out of time, but I'm intrigued by what you just said. So if something pops in your head, whatever, I got an idea, or I don't think we should do that. I don't think that's your subconscious mind talking.
That's your unconscious mind keeping you safe, wanting you to grow, wanting you to deal with stuff.
Since a lot of this stuff comes from or came from our childhood, is it reasonable to say that we're all acting like kids?
The inner child is there.
Yeah.
It never goes away. Everything that really is formative is that 0 to 7 years.
How do we find you? How do we connect with you? How do we make these changes? Even just what we're talking about here today. I know you do a lot more than that, but this is, to me, kind of like baseline stuff. You gotta go through to improve your life. How do we connect with you, Valerie?
ValeriePeckCoaching.com. There's a calendar link right on the main page. Click it, book a connect call. We'll talk.
Yeah. Starts with a conversation. I know this is woo-woo stuff for some. So have the conversation. You have nothing to lose. If your subconscious mind doesn't want you to do it, it's going to tell you. You will know everything you need is within you right now. Valerie, thank you so much for all of us today, and looking forward next time we talk.
Thank you very much.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.